It's the early dawn of December 10th, 1941, under a sky tinged with the faintest light. In the waters off the coast of Malaya, a British naval task force quietly navigates swells that glisten under a pale sunrise. Their objective is both urgent and dangerous: launch a preemptive strike against Japanese forces rumored to be near Kwantan. At the core of this flotilla stands the modern battleship HMS Prince of Wales, a symbol of British maritime might, under the steady command of Captain John Jack Leach. Though no one speaks of it aloud, a sense of unease pervades the decks, an unspoken dread that the Japanese may already know they're coming. Suddenly, a tense radio call cuts through the hush of dawn. "Sir, torpedoes signaling distress." "Bloody fools, we're under strict radio silence," Captain Leach retorts, gripping the nearest railing. He hurries to speak with Admiral Sir Tom Phillips, the task force commander, who stands on the Prince of Wales's bridge. "Sir, Tenedos is under Japanese bomber attack. This means the enemy has our location locked in. The entire Task Force Z is now within strike range." In seconds, the gravity of their predicament becomes unmistakable. Outside, the low reverberation of aircraft engines grows louder, humming across the skies above Malayan waters. Dark silhouettes begin to emerge from the clouds, descending swiftly to line up their targets. The first wave of bombs zeroes in on the more vulnerable battlecruiser HMS Repulse, an older vessel that remains formidable but lacks modern armor upgrades. Columns of water shoot skyward as bombs detonate perilously close to her hull, sending tremors through her decks. On the bridge of Repulse, Captain William Tennant wastes no time. "All hands to action stations. Now!" A 250-kilogram bomb slams into her deck near midships, hurling Tennant and his bridge crew off their feet. Smoke pours from the damaged area, and the shock wave sweeps through interior compartments. Despite the mayhem, Repulse claws forward, her propulsion unscathed. She refuses to slow, leaving a thin trail of smoke curling in her wake. No serious flooding is detected, and her engines still respond, a testament to her robust, if aging, design. Meanwhile, aboard Prince of Wales, Captain Leach's voice rings with urgency. "Action stations, prepare for air attack." He glimpses more aircraft overhead, Japanese bombers, numbering at least 67, approaching from different quadrants in a carefully orchestrated pincer maneuver. They split into two squadrons, intending to overwhelm the British anti-aircraft guns by striking from multiple angles at once. From approximately 8 miles out, they begin their descent. Admiral Phillips, face drawn, issues orders. All ships, increase speed to 25 knots. Each captain, maneuver at will. Below deck, sailors scramble to man gun batteries and to pass ammunition up hoists. On the bridge, a radio operator pails. "Sir, these bombers appear to be carrying torpedoes. They're not just standard high-level bombers." Phillips, scanning through binoculars, spies planes dropping toward the waves, vanishing briefly into cloud cover, then reappearing at perilously low altitude near the Prince of Wales's port bow. 9 Japanese aircraft line up in formation, motors roaring as they skim the water's surface. British anti-aircraft crews unleash tracer fire, arcs of red sizzling across the sky. After a dozen salvos, they switch to barrage tactics, detonating shells in midair in hopes of forming a lethal curtain. Yet the Japanese, skilled in low-level torpedo runs, press on undeterred. With adrenaline spiking, the Prince of Wales crew watches the lethal fish drop from enemy planes at dangerously close range. Captain Leach bellows, "Hard to port, evade those torpedoes." But the attacking bombers, traveling at high speed, also execute a strafing run, showering the battleship's decks with bullets. Several sailors are hit. One Japanese plane is shredded by flak, its wings shearing off and spinning the fuselage into the sea. Relief at this minor victory evaporates as 2 torpedoes home in on the battleship's hull. The first sends up a massive plume of water on the port side. Although it penetrates the outer plating, flooding remains contained, for the moment. Moments later, the second torpedo strikes astern, opening a gaping wound in the hull's underwater structure. Seawater surges into the engine room, tossing men off their feet and drenching machinery. Prince of Wales lists, her speed falling abruptly as pumps try in vain to keep up with the torrent. Despite the chaos, her gunners resolutely fire back. Barrels grow dangerously hot, and ammunition feeders strain to keep a steady supply of shells. Another torpedo slams into the ship's vulnerable aft section, wrecking electrical conduits essential for steering. With no power for her rudder, Prince of Wales drifts, an immobilized target. Realizing the decks must be leveled so the anti-aircraft guns can still track incoming attackers, Leach orders certain compartments on the starboard side flooded. We need to trim this list so our guns can bear effectively. But that measure only deepens the threat. If hit again on the starboard side, the flooding could become catastrophic. By 12:19 p.m., Prince of Wales's once imposing anti-aircraft network is severely diminished. The men on deck endure suffocating heat from the guns' continuous firing, the acrid stench of burning powder saturating the air. A lookout shouts, "Contact! Port side! Another wave incoming!" Additional bombers swoop down from the clouds, splitting into two prongs. 6 head for the weakened Prince of Wales, hugging the surface below most of her guns' elevation arcs. They release torpedoes in swift unison. Onlookers can only gasp as multiple torpedo tracks slice toward the battleship. Explosions rend the hull, flinging plating inward and sweeping sailors away. Oil seeps from the damaged compartments, coating the surface of the sea. Water pours into lower decks uncontrollably, submerging key engineering spaces and cutting power to essential pumps. Meanwhile, HMS Repulse is furiously defending herself. Captain Tennant's helmsman throws the ship into a hard turn, narrowly missing the telltale white bubble trails of numerous torpedoes. Remarkably, by bold maneuvers, Repulse escapes nearly 20 torpedo runs, weaving through them like a lighter destroyer. But just after 12:20 p.m., fresh torpedo bombers converge from all directions. Despite Repulse's agile handling, she's hit multiple times in under 5 minutes, opening yawning holes in her hull. With water flooding in, her list to port becomes dire. Realizing the fight is hopeless, Tennant issues, "All hands on deck, abandon ship." Communication lines below are destroyed, so some men remain unaware, stuck in compartments rapidly filling with water. Repulse rolls over with stunning swiftness, vanishing under the waves in a mere 11 minutes from the first crippling blow. Many survive by leaping overboard or clinging to debris, but many more are trapped beneath decks, their final moments sealed by twisted metal. Aboard the Prince of Wales, Admiral Phillips finally breaks strict radio silence. "Signal the rest of Task Force Z, Prince of Wales and Repulse under heavy attack. Require immediate assistance." In the throes of chaos, a 500-kilogram bomb smashes onto Prince of Wales's decks, compounding the flooding below. By 12:50 p.m., the battleship's stern is awash, and over 18,000 tons of seawater have invaded her compartments. Captain Leach, glancing at the battered superstructure, knows the end is near. "Evacuate the wounded immediately. Time's almost up." Still clinging to a shred of hope, Leach tries to rally volunteers to salvage what remains, but the starboard flooding intensifies. He acknowledges reality at last and commands the general evacuation. "Abandon ship." Destroyer HMS Express edges close to the doomed battleship, rigging cables and makeshift gangplanks for survivors. Dozens of men swing across, but the Prince of Wales continues her inexorable role, widening the gap until the cables snap under unbearable tension. Admiral Phillips and Captain Leach are observed on the listing deck, stoically refusing to leave their command. Moments before the hull inverts, They exchange final words. Witnesses spot them near the upturned side at 1324, just before the Prince of Wales capsizes completely. The destroyer HMS Electra, rushing to gather survivors, sends a grim message to Singapore headquarters. HMS Prince of Wales sunk. The news confirms a catastrophic loss for the Royal Navy, with 2 major warships gone in a single Japanese onslaught. Decades later, the wrecks of these vessels would lie quietly in the depths, until 2023, when Malaysian authorities seized a Chinese dredger, Chuan Hong 68, suspected of looting artifacts and ordnance from these sunken war graves. Shells recovered on board were believed to originate from both the Prince of Wales and Repulse, a sobering reminder of the ship's tragic ends and the men who gave their lives. In the aftermath, historians have called this one of the most significant naval losses for Britain in World War II's early years, shattering the illusion of battleship invulnerability against air power. Task Force Z's mission collapsed in the waters off Malaya, forever illustrating the lethal synergy of torpedo aviation and high-level bombing. Britain's defeat at sea that day would prompt a profound reassessment of naval tactics and memorialize the crews of Prince of Wales and Repulse, whose courage in battle remains an enduring testament to duty, valor, and sacrifice. Special thanks to World of Warships for supporting this historical coverage. For more insights into naval warfare and to experience commanding your own fleet, check the link in the description.